This book is called The Green Ship.
What?
It's called The Green Ship.
What's a green?
A ship that is...
Green?
Ah, what a surprise. I can remember very clearly, even now, what it was like when we climbed...
Is this a real story?
Maybe. When we climbed over the wall into the garden of the big house. We knew we weren't supposed to, but we'd been staying with our aunt for a fortnight already.
That's
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. 14 days. And we were beginning to feel bored. So we were on the lookout for adventure.
Like a week?
7.
Well, that is 2 sevens.
14. Over the wall, it wasn't much like the kind of garden we were used to. It was more like a park or even a forest. We can be explorers, Alice said, crashing into the undergrowth. I wonder what we shall discover. The trees were huge and covered with ivy. It really was very much like a jungle.
What's ivy?
A type of long green plant. That plant there. Kind of winds around everything.
Like trees or...
Well, it grows up trees, yeah. And houses sometimes too.
Not houses. Sometimes if you're sleeping, some ivy might crawl on you.
No.
Why?
Because it doesn't grow that fast.
It doesn't grow houses. Wait, does
We
it not
plunged
like
deeper
humans?
and deeper into it.
Does it not like humans? It doesn't grow on humans.
No. We thought we were completely lost. Then, all at once, we pushed aside a screen of branches and saw something absolutely astonishing.
It just starts to me. The green ship.
It was a ship. At least it wasn't a real ship, but you could see it was meant to be a ship. Bushes had been cut into the shape of the bow and stern, and 2 trees trimmed to look like funnels. On the other side of those there were 2 tall, thin trees with not many branches that were obviously meant to be the masts. Then Alice said, "Come on, there's nobody about. Let's have a look at it." Towards the back of the ship there was something like a treehouse, or a small garden shed perched on top of an ancient tree stump. A set of wooden steps,
What is ancient?
super old.
Like
And
an
a s-
ancient sword or
Yes.
an ancient bow.
A set of wooden steps led up to it, and we climbed them and went in.
But it still does lots of damage, though.
Yeah. Inside there was a wheel with spokes that stuck out, just as if it was a proper ship.
What's a wheel of spokes?
A ship's wheel.
And
On
why
a
is
little
it called
shelf.
A wheel of spoke.
Those are spokes, that's a wheel.
What
There was a
spoke-
telescope,
what
and
does
in it,
spoke mean?
one of
I
those.
know.
No. From the roof hung an old lantern. Through the windows you could see for miles.
How?
So, because you could. You could almost believe you were at sea. And then suddenly, we were taken by surprise by a voice that said, "Well, well, what do we have here, bosun? Stowaways?" Lady and a gardener. There was a thin lady in a dark dress looking up at us. "What do you think, bosun? Shall we clap them in irons?" "Only youngsters," said the bosun, who actually looked a lot more like a gardener. "Swabbing the decks is the thing, if you ask me. And after that, perhaps we shall have tea on the deck." Swabbing the decks turned out to be sweeping away the leaves. And tea really was tea, with Madeira cake and cucumber sandwiches. At the end of it, Miss Tredegar, that was her name, said, "The bosun will see you tomorrow, or will see you ashore. Why not come again tomorrow?" I'm sure that's what the captain would have wanted.
Where's the captain?
Well, do you remember the photograph? Up there?
I can see it. Wait, was that like a wheeled ship?
No, it's a garden ship made of trees.
Let's build that.
The next morning, with permission from our aunt, we were back at the ship. We climbed the masts, and took turns to steer the ship. Miss Tredegar showed us how to use the telescope, and at the end of the day, we were a fully trained crew. On our next visit, Miss Tredegar produced an old atlas. What's an atlas? It's a book of maps. And every day we imagined that we were voyaging to some new place. A flower urn became an Italian ruin. A palm tree, there really was a palm tree.
What's a ruin?
And an old place that used to be where someone lived but is now destroyed.
Like Hyrule Kingdom.
Yeah.
It's like
Yes, yeah.
destroyed,
Became
but
far
some of
offshore
it
of
is
Egypt.
still
Yeah,
there.
we understand, yes. No more computer game talk now.
Yes.
One chilly day, we pretended we were in the Arctic. Bushes became icebergs, and some sheep that had got into the garden by mistake became polar bears.
Because they look like
Yeah,
polar
they're white and fluffy. They're just pretending, of course. The last few days of our holiday were hot and sunny. They get hotter and hotter. We wore sun hats and played deck quoits and drank lots of lime juice.
It's lime.
It's like the opposite of a lemon. You know a green lemon? You've seen them? Got a lime. Deck quoits is where you get sticks in the ground and have to throw hoops over them for points.
That's the only thing at
We have
they
had
can play on the ship.
You have the full sticks boating.
Yes.
But by accident,
But
you
it's
kind
free
of,
Boys.
you can kind of throw them overboard.
Well, you just must be careful then. It seemed as though we were heading southward through tropical seas. Eventually, it became so hot that Miss Tredegar decided that we must have reached the equator, and we must have the ceremony of crossing the line. The equator is the line in the middle of the planet. The bosun was King Neptune, with a beard made of garden twine and a hayfork for a trident. First-timers had to be shaved, which seemed to include Alice as well as me.
What's he timers?
First-timers, people that had never been to the equator
Neptune is
before.
really powerful.
Yes, Neptune is the Roman god of the sea.
The god of the sea.
Yes.
God is the god of the sky and controls like a lot.
Well, in Neptune times it wasn't. They had different gods. Neptune's from them.
What does Neptune? What does Neptune mean?
It's just his name.
They're tied.
Yes. There was a bucket of soap suds and a
Sounds
sort
like
of
a really powerful name.
wooden butter knife from the kitchen, and we all got very wet. The next day was our full last day of our holiday, and it was agreed we should stay overnight at the big house. The weather was hotter than ever, and suddenly everything was absolutely still. And then, after tea, the sky turned a strange colour, and large drops of rain began to fall. "There's going to be a storm," said Mrs. Tredegar. "Come on, crew, into the wheelhouse." A warm wind blew through the garden, and Miss Tredegar took the wheel. "What would the captain have done?" she said. "Steer into the eye of the storm. That's it. Steer into the eye of the storm."
The eye of the storm.
The middle of the storm.
Yeah, but
And what a storm it was. There were huge claps of thunder, lightning, and crackled across the sky. The swaying of the lantern and the
What
rain
happened
rushing.
with the book
You'll
then?
have to read it and find out.
That's on with the
The rain lashing against the windows made it seem as if we were truly at sea, and the storm seemed to go on forever. At some point, we must have fallen asleep, because when we awoke, we were on the floor of the wheelhouse, and early morning sunshine was shining through. Mrs. Tredegar was still at the wheel. "She came through," she said. "She came through." And then she turned and looked at us and said, "Well done, crew. The captain would have been proud of you." I think the captain was her husband, but he died. Then Mrs. Tredegar
She married a different.
didn't marry a different one. Mrs. Tredegar walked across the grass, and with a long trail of ivy, tied up the battered ship, as if She had come into port at last.
Wait, let's see. Lively.
We still go back to see Miss Tredegar every year. The bosun says he's getting
Who's
two.
bosun?
Bosun is the gardener.
Wait, that girl's wife.
No, he's just the gardener. He's the man and he's the gardener. He's not married to Mrs. Tredegar. I don't know.
Right. Wait,
The bosun is
oh,
too.
they're friends.
Yes, is too stiff to climb up and trim the masts and the funnels, and that Mrs. Tredegar doesn't seem to mind. Look, it's getting messier. He can't climb up anymore.
Can they
He's
not
getting
go
old.
on the ship?
And the kids are getting bigger. And so, gradually, year by year, the trees are growing back into their old shape. And they're becoming ordinary trees. And soon, there will no longer be any way of knowing that they were once a green ship. The end.
Daddy, was that reading the story?